Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Listen, we're going to take a look at Tropical Storm Barry for a minute or two, and the reason why is because of where it's hitting. Not so much the power of the storm. This is not really wind speed, not really all that great, but it's packing a punch of rain, and it's hitting New Orleans, or the New Orleans area. New Orleans is a very special city, and the reason why is it's one of the few cities on Earth that is like Venice, you know. It's low, very, very low the water level. Now, we've had a couple hurricanes go through that region in recent history, and what everything depends upon with the levees and everything. And a lot of people don't realize this. They just think a hurricane's a hurricane's a hurricane, but no, it's not. There's something that goes with a hurricane called a storm surge. And that storm surge has everything to do with the tide. What time the storm makes landfall. If the tide is in and the water's high and then the storm surge hits, it multiplies the storm surge than if the storm comes in when the tide's out. If the storm comes in with the tides out, they've lucked out. Because the storm surge will not breach the levees. It's got everything to do with the tide. People don't realize that. And the timing, the storm comes in. Along with the tide. Right? That's got everything to do with that. So sometimes a little storm can cause an awful lot of damage if it comes in at the right time at high tide and it has a nice big storm surge with it. Now there's levees there. Now they've made the levees better since Hurricane Katrina. They've worked on them a lot. They've made them higher and stronger. Okay? So we're going to have to wait and see. So let's take a look at this storm. Let's start the charts right here and take a look at what we got. And here we go. You know, here is Tropical Storm Barry, and its current location is 28.7 degrees north by 90.9 degrees west, and it has a sustained wind of 65 miles an hour, so it's not even quite hurricane strength yet. But it's going to gain a little bit of speed, according to the National Hurricane Center. It's going to come up to 70 miles an hour, which is just under hurricane strength, I believe. I believe it's almost Category 1, that wind speed. So let's take a look here at the National Hurricane Center discussion on the storm. Tropical Storm Barry, storm continues to look disorganized. In satellite imagery, it says. Well, I'm going to tell you what. To me, the storm is starting to be much more organized. I was just taking a look at the satellite myself, and we've undergone a burst of convection. Let's take a look here at the satellite, and let's hone in at the storm itself. And what we see is this afternoon. Now, you see that black looking stuff? That is very high, very cold cloud tops. That's giant thunderheads within the storm that feed the storm. That's what feeds the storm. That's its fuel. And when you see really black looking on the infrared, on this infrared photo, if you see really looking black looking stuff, that's extremely strong convection. That means that the storm is picking up a lot of hot, warm moisture, you know, and it's feeding the storm. Now, underneath that convection, and one of the things I can tell you about hurricanes is when they start to form an eye is when they're just about right around Category 1. And I don't really see an eye in that deep convection just yet, you know, but this type of convection is what can cause a hurricane to intensify quite rapidly when you see this type of dark, very dark-looking convection. And, of course, I can also see the outer bands of the storm. It looks like the wind is hitting them, and it looks like it's coming up against a little bit of wind shear. That's what I see by looking at this satellite imagery. Of course, wind shear helps to weaken the storm. Wind shear is hurricanes, they hate wind shear. And if you look at the high-level clouds here coming off of the storm, you can see a little bit of wind shear. So that tends to weaken the storms. So we got two things working together simultaneously. We got very, very strong convection, but it looks like we got a little bit of wind shear too it's coming up against. And so the storm looks like it's just poised off the coast of Louisiana right now. Let's take a look at Louisiana. Here we have New Orleans, the New Orleans region. I can back out a little bit so you can see it better. Now, I guess the storm is going to make landfall somewhere in this area, probably between Lafayette and Mobile. Probably somewhere there, because if we take a look at the National Hurricane Center and we go back to the charts, the graphics here, we will take a look at the warnings and the cone area, and what we see is we see the storm making landfall right in the center of Louisiana, and I believe that it's probably going to be around hurricane strength, or just quite just under hurricane strength. The rain is what's going to do it, and the timing of the tide. All of that's going to come together to see just how much damage this thing can do. Is probably going to be mostly water damage. That's my estimation on the storm. So listen, thank you guys. Well, okay, just before I go, I want to say one more thing. Don't underestimate the damage water can do. Now, there is some wind in this thing, packing about 70-mile-an-hour winds when it comes ashore, but there's an awful lot of water there. Don't underestimate the damage water can do, and remember to always listen to the storm warnings. If they tell you to evacuate, then you should evacuate. You know, and if you're not under if there's no evacuation order, and you're going to stay in your home, if you're near the ocean, you know, the wind speed's a lot greater than if you're inland. You know, with this kind of a storm, if you're a ways inland, you're probably not going to see as much wind. You know, if you're right near the coast is where you're going to actually see the wind. But it's a storm surge. You know, this is one of the factors and this is probably the reason. This is why they tell you to evacuate. They were able to storm surge. So anyway, listen, you guys have a good evening. Thank you for listening to this report, and we'll catch you guys again very, very soon.